one of the reasons why the game against the Soviets went that way is because Jim Craig was standing on his head pretty much the whole time, right? Right. I mean, what was the shot differential again? What was it again?
39-16, 15-3 in the second period. And as Ken Dryden said just before I called Eruzioni's goal, the Americans are putting too much pressure on Jim Craig. But Jim Craig kept us in the game. He kept us in. It's real simple. Because if the Soviets had taken like a 4-2 lead, that would have been very, very, very difficult to overcome.
And here's some of your calls of Jim Craig standing on his head in that game.
Lukov in on Craig, the save by Jim, stops the rebound, and the whistle for the face-off. Now to Pervukin. Pervukin's slap shot is covered up by Jim Craig. Petrov, number 16, long slap shot, and Craig able to sweep it aside, and the puck clears the glass and goes into the seats. So Jim Craig tested time and time again tonight with 5:21 remaining in the game.
And I am pleased to have joining us now live on Zoom for you, Al Michaels, is none other than Jim Craig. Good to see you, Jim.
Yes.
Hi, there he is.
Hey, how's Linda, Steve, and Jennifer?
Everybody's just great. We think about you and the family all the time, man. Good to see. I haven't seen you in a number of years. God, you look great.
Thanks.
Yeah. You know, Rich, you can't win a Stanley Cup. You can't win an Olympic gold medal unless your goalie is terrific. It's impossible. And what can you say about Jim? Every time he had to make a save, he made the save. Kept us in every game. Again, we fell behind in every game, but there he was, and especially in the third period, he was impossible to penetrate at that point.
So nice of you. Thank you, Al, after all these years. You know, I was thinking just the other day as I transitioned from the athlete to the business person, you know, you realize that to be the very best at it takes so much work. And, you know, so when I learned all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on with your business and how professional you are, the one thing that comes to my mind is your balance to be able to understand the game, utilize your assets. And in Lake Placid, you know, Kenny was such an asset and never outstepped him. It was, you know, so it was almost like this script was made before you guys even called the game. You guys are so good.
Thank you. I mean, and Kenny was the perfect partner. Remember, Kenny had never done this before, and Ken had just retired at the peak of his career after winning several Vezina trophies and multiple Stanley Cups. And Ken just wanted to experience different things in life, and he talked to his agent, Art Kaminsky, put him in touch with ABC, and they put us together. And, of course, I've told you the story many times about I got that game because I had done one hockey game, and everybody else on that staff had done none. Howard Cosell, Jim McKay, Keith Jackson, Chris Schenkel, they hadn't done any. So I almost got that assignment by default. And also, I was a kid who grew up in New York, and I loved hockey, so I knew what offside and icing were. Which at that point was a very important thing to know.
And that's how you got the gig?
And that's how I got the gig, right? And they put me with Kenny, and Kenny and I went to Moscow to scout the teams before the Olympics in December of 79. And, you know, Kenny's very erudite and describes things beautifully and brilliantly, unbelievably articulate. And he spends about 5 or 6 minutes at dinner the first time we met in Moscow explaining to me the difference between international hockey and the National Hockey League brand of hockey. And then Ken says to me, you know, Ken, he looked like the professor. He's got the glasses and the whole thing, the pipe. He's got everything but the slippers and the dog. And Ken says to me, he said, now, do you think this is the kind of thing the American audience would be interested in? I said, Ken, yes, but let me introduce you to the world of television. Can you get it down to 8 seconds? And he did. He figured it out.
Oh, man. And Jim, you know, did you wake up that day? How? Like, what was going on in your mind when you woke up in Lake Placid 45 years ago Saturday?
Well, you know, one of the things is everybody prepares to win, or they think they do. But with our coach, he was the most organized person there was. And so in order to prepare to win, you have to get organized. And, you know, I think one of the biggest and smartest things that he did was have us play the Russians in Madison Square Garden so that we became more prepared. So when we woke up that morning, we had done the work, we were prepared, and it was really about executing. Now, just because you're organized, prepared, and you execute, doesn't mean you're going to win. But, I think the biggest focus was how are we going to represent our country and do the very best job we could be. And for me, playing the Russians was like, in one period, was like a game against anybody else. So, you try to compartmentalize and have really strategic times. And Al, as you know, in sports, goalies have to make the save at the right time. So you watched that game last night, the Canadian goalie, if he didn't make any saves, he made them all at the right time, in overtime. And so timing has so much to do with it. So being prepared, enjoying the moment, probably the most important thing.
You were able to live in the moment, Jim? You were able to soak it in while you're doing this?
Yeah, I mean, you get to play against the greatest team in the world, and you're representing your country, and it's a really good test to find out where you're going to be. And I always tell people you have to have more goals. Most people, when they get somewhere, they think they're done. And to me, when you finally make it somewhere, you're just starting. You know what I mean? And so this was a real good litmus test.
And Rich, don't forget, one of the most iconic post-game camera shots ever taken was Jim Craig, whose mom had died shortly before. "Where's my father? Where's my father?" You could read his lips. What a moment, Jim. What a moment that was.
Yeah, Al, one of the things, and you and I have talked about this, is if you can change your mindset from sacrifices and look at them as opportunities where someone else has made sacrifices for you, then comes a responsibility. So it was really easy for me to think about my father and all the sacrifices that not only my family did, but community and coaches, and that can be used as a motivator. And I think that's really kind of something that I've been very fortunate enough to use as a tool of motivation.
Would you mind sharing with us what happened when you did find your dad?
Well, first, he used to be right behind the goal, and I used to love the end that didn't have the ice machine because there was more people there and you had more pressure. And he used to always sit up there. So I'd have to acknowledge him, you know what I mean? Because, hi, Dad, okay, time to go to work, right? And so, earlier in his life, he had a heart attack, right? A pretty bad one. And so when the game ends, he's not where he should be. And I found out that ABC had moved him to a better spot. And so I'm trying to find him and making sure he's okay. But the moment was really about both of us thinking of his wife and my mother and, wishing that she would be able to be physically with us there. And it was more out of a respect, so when I found him, he knew what I was thinking, right? And I was really happy to see him.
Something else, huh?
Wow. Oh, yeah. I mean, just you go back. I mean, 45 years later, we're talking about it, boy, and it's like...
It's still there.
Wow.
It still hits you.
Yeah, of course it does.
It hits me right here, right in the gut, right now, just hearing this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right now.
And what's amazing, guys, is that the Four Nations tournament, what I felt last night were two countries needing some type of moral boost, and it was the hockey game that did it again, and it was about pride and respect. And these NHLers, they're not being paid. They're just so prideful. They have recognized the journey and so many people there, and people were just passionate and felt good. And it was like that feeling, but obviously at the Olympic stage is a little bit bigger.
I mean, to me, Rich and Jim knows there's nothing like hockey. You get like in a Stanley Cup overtime game. I've been to a whole bunch of them, and if you're a fan, I mean, you're dying 1,000 deaths. The other team almost scores. Oh, you almost score. Oh, you hit the post. Oh, I mean, there's that moment. So many, and there's no other sport like that. There's nothing like hockey. Nothing in my mind.
You don't want to be the goalie's parent, though.
That's very true. Very true.
Where's the flag, Jim? that you were wearing, if you will. That, I don't know how. Walk me through the story of that. Who put it on your shoulder? Where you got the flag after it was all over, beating the Soviets?
The flag at the Colorado Springs has a Paralympic and Olympic museum, so it's always on display so everybody can see it. The story that I think is great just about the flag is that they didn't sell any at the arena. So every flag that you saw there, somebody brought from their house. And it meant something. And the only way you really had flags back in the day was probably because somebody within your family served for their country. And so to me, with great respect is the flag. And, to me, it's a non-negotiable, right? It's something you need to respect and be proud of.
Rich, also in conjunction with that, I had done a number of sports. I'd done a couple of World Series. I'd done baseball for the whole decade of the 70s, college football. I'm at ABC, a lot of events. To me, this is where the chant started. USA, USA. This is where it started.
Al, I don't know if you know it. When I was doing research on my second book, We Win, I found the two part-time firefighters that were in Lake Placid. And the story is during the game against Sweden, they got off a little early, came in, we were losing. The crowd was like dead. And these two volunteer firefighters, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but started that chant. And that's where the chant started from. It was dead silent. They got up just out of pride and started yelling USA. And then it just, you see what it is now, right? Last night it wasn't political either. It was pride. And sometimes people do the USA or it's more symbolic of pride. But when it's real, it's a special, special chant.
No question. I mean, last night I think it had, forget about the 51st state and the tariffs and all that. We know that plays into it, in my mind, very minimally. This was about the involvement of U.S. hockey, how good we are. And it all started, it goes back to 1980. And Jeremy Roenick once told me that the reason he wanted to be a hockey player was, watching that game and seeing how exciting it was. And, of course, that spawned, I think, a whole generation of players. The movie has probably spawned another generation. And now, let's face it, the U.S. and Canada are... If you're on radio only, I'm going to hold my fingers like a millimeter apart.
Nice.
If Austin Matthews had a couple of chances last night and Brady Kachuk, if the puck goes in, we're having a different conversation today, aren't we?
We sure are. Hey, Jim, what a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time, certainly on such a momentous occasion. I know you're being pulled in many different directions. You've done this multiple times, and keep looking for my calls, man. I get emotional seeing you, honestly. I think of that moment about, you looking for your dad and the flag on your shoulder and what it meant, and how you stood on your head and basically said no damn near 40 times that night. Unbelievable.
Well, Al and I are connected to an event that is so much more than a hockey game. But Al, the best part is I'm here in Denver and I'm with my granddaughter and my daughter. And last night, my son had the jersey on, went to the game. He had my little grandson with a jersey on, and my granddaughters, they're all wearing USA Hockey jerseys. And so it keeps going,
Nothing
for
like
all
it.
Right reasons. And nobody could have called it better, Al. I'm just so happy to get a chance to say hi to you.
Hey.
Hopefully we'll play some golf and everybody stay healthy, okay?
You guys wrote the script, not me. You gave me that. You gave me the opportunity to say something that came out of my heart. It was you guys. Let's be honest.
Well,
I mean,
you're the 21st player on that team now, so I hope you boys know that. And Rich, keep on doing what you do, and I'll catch up to you guys again one of these days.
Good being the honorary mascot. Love you, man. Be good.
You too, Al. Bye.
That's great.
The great Jim Craig right here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Terrific. That's great. Wow. That was wonderful.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.